Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show, and if I don't have questions, I don't have a show. And this is for November 2022. This week I got a bunch of questions. I'm going to give some updates on my channel and some of the things going on in my life. So let's start there, and then we'll go through the questions as they come. First off, I want to say the end of October has been a flurry of interviews for other people's channels that I did. Now, a couple of them happened in the month of October, and one happened way back in August, and happened to be the last one to come out. So I'm going to mention that first. I didn't do a promo for this one. I did a promo for one of them. So let's talk about the first one, which is my last one, which is the one that is called All Music Matters, and it's with Brian Gribbins. And Brian Gribbins has been interviewing a lot of YouTube drummers. He got into this sometime last year, or sometimes during this year, I guess. He started it, and I don't know what guest I am. I can't really tell that. But anyhow, I did a pretty hour-and-a-half interview. Each one of these interviews of me has got a little different side of me coming out depending on who's interviewing me. Brian's interview, we got a little deeper into some philosophical things and stuff, so I hope I don't offend anybody, but, you know, my philosophical beliefs and my religious beliefs and a lot of things I'm seeing in the world are based on 62 years of watching the world. So we got into some of that crazy stuff, and way near the end. Most of you will never get that far. You'll stay in the drumming stuff and never get to that, and not a lot of people have watched. So I want you to check out Brian Gribbins. That's his channel. He's a drummer too on YouTube. He does collaborations. He does a Q&A show, kind of like this, I guess. And he does a lot of drummer interviews on YouTube. So give him a check him out, subscribe to his channel. And if you want to learn more about me, there's 3 places to go. So the other one that I didn't promote was my friend Sean Woodley. Now, Sean Woodley's my student. I met Sean a couple years back, probably somewhere in COVID, and we hit it off, and he's been taking lessons with me for a year or so now. He's from the Atlanta, Georgia area. Really nice guy, and I really enjoyed him. And he's got some kind of a show, and his show is called Behind the Music, and this is episode number 5. It's more of a podcast, and I actually helped him by doing the Zoom side of it, and I sent him the audio. So he put it up on his Facebook. So if you're a friend of Sean Woodley, you'll find this Facebook podcast interview with me, Behind the Music, episode 5. Maybe someday I'll release it, but truth of the matter is there's so much of me this month, I wouldn't release anything with me on it on my channel right now. The last one being my good friend Eric at the Drum Attic, Eric and Loretta. I did the Backbeat, and that was last weekend. Of course, I was on, I guess Sean released me like Wednesday of that week, and then last weekend on Friday, Eric released me. So I was on his show, the Backbeat, and I was interviewed there. So there's a lot of exposure for me this past couple weeks. And by the time I release this, it'll probably be 2 weeks out. So if you want to see any of these interviews about me, check them out on those channels, Brian Gribbins, Eric of the Drum Attic, and my good friend Sean Woodley. So you'll get a different side of me, a little different take than what I do here on Ask Earl Anything. Now, a couple other things I want to get into. We are coming into the end of the year. This is the last weekend in October. It's been a rough year in some respects. I just came back from New Jersey and a funeral last weekend in New Jersey for my mother-in-law. God rest her soul. Hopefully we're out of that. You know, the residuals of that stay, unfortunately. I deal with them. But I'm a little behind on drum covers, so you're going to see a few more of my what I call alt-take videos will come out in the next couple weeks. I try to put out a video a day. I don't know why I do that, but I have, believe it or not, enough alt-takes to probably do 3 months solid of I probably have 3 months worth of alt take videos sitting in there. And then I've got some videos that are new and that I've done. One of the videos I did was I'm doing a lot more revisit videos because I'm finding it hard to find good music I want to do. I just revisited the Zombies tune, so I'm going to call that my, and I haven't released this yet, but I probably will release this before Ask Earl Anything comes out. But I redid the Zombies Time of the Season. That was like one of my first big drum covers. It's probably got, I don't know, 15, 16,000 views on it. The original was done in Studio B with my Noble Cooley drum kit, which I don't have anymore. My friend Scott had it and he sold it. But somebody wanted that track. And I've been asked that question before, like, can you give me the drum track to the cover you did? And I don't do a lot of the drum track and put it out there as a drum track only for others to play along with. I've done a few. I did like a Steve Miller tune where there's one of those, and I did a 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover with Paul Simon, the original Steve Gadd version, and that just happened because I couldn't put out the original version originally. It took 3-4 years for that to be allowed to be released from Unblocked. But Time of the Season, I was a request, so I did the track, and I am going to release that as a drum-only track too at some point, just because I think there's guys that like the song and want to have that track to play along to. So I think that's kind of interesting. So that's coming too. What else did I want to say? Anyhow, I have been taking a lot of requests, and that kind of falls in the request category because somebody asked me if I could get that track to them, so I redid it. So some of my redos have to do with me doing requests for people, and then there's some new tracks I've been doing. So I take requests, but it takes me a while to get to them. I have to be in the mood to want to play your song sometimes. Sometimes the song is really not my wheelhouse. Sometimes it really is my wheelhouse, and I go, oh yeah, that's my wheelhouse. I want to do that. And I find it a great fit. Other times I go, I'm struggling to get into this one. I don't know the song. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, especially when I'm so backed up on my own covers. So that has a lot to do with what I do and when I do things, because, to do 7 covers in a weekend, which is what my goal is every weekend. So I have 1 day's worth of video every week. That means I have to do a majority of the videos, like at least 3 or 4 of them have to be something that I can bang out pretty quick. And it's got to be something where I'm not spending an hour on the song to get it down. And the last couple months, I've been doing some harder songs just for my own head. But to catch up, I got to do some easy songs. That's just what it comes down to. Now, I don't like to do super easy songs where it's just pocket. I like to throw a little something on it. So I try to find interesting songs to me. And sometimes when I'm asked to do a song, that song doesn't interest me. So it's harder for me to get into it. So be patient. I got a couple songs that are requests that are sitting around. I may get to one of these days. I have a bunch of songs I want to do. I jump genres all the time. It's either 70s, 80s, occasionally a 90s tune, CCM tunes I like to do. Jazz songs I like to do, fusion songs. So it really depends on my mood that week, what I do and what I don't do. So anyhow, with that said, today I've got a bunch of drummer questions. So we're going to jump into drummer questions from a lot of old friends. One guy's got 3 questions this week. So he's going to get the award for the most questions. I'm going to save the best questions for last, the ones I really want to do. So let's jump into this right now. So the first question comes from Brian Drums, and Brian's an old friend, and he had a question. He said, I nearly watched the whole thing. This was on my Ask Earl Anything. I love the 22-inch big beat. Sounds more like a Zildjian K. I love this great Ask Earl Anything. Question for next time, Paiste. What's the secret? 90% of their cymbals are B8. Nearly every other company uses B20. If you have any insight on this, let me know. Okay, Brian. Well, first off, I don't know if 90% of their cymbals are B8, because I think Paiste's got a great B20 collection in the Formula 602 cymbals. So the Formula 602s are B20. The Formula 602 Modern Essentials are B20. The Master Series are B20. There used to be a series called the 20 series that was B20. So that's a good third of their cymbals are that alloy. The other alloy that's very common in the Paiste line is the Paiste alloy. And that, I believe, is a B15, if I'm not mistaken. But somebody from that camp that knows those cymbals well may say, no, it's B12 or something. I think it's B15, but it's the Paiste secret alloy. It's what they make the traditionals out of. It's what they make the dark energy rides out of. It's what they make the signature series out of. Now, I find that metal to be the least durable of all the Paiste alloys, meaning by durability, you're more likely to dent one of those or crack them than the B20s or the B8 cymbals, which is what we call the Paiste 2002 alloyed or the giant beat alloy. Okay, the B8s were the bread and butter of Paiste cymbals. Now, Paiste's manufacturing process is really what makes them different than Zildjian. Paiste buys metal in sheets, and then they cut them out, formulate a bell, punch a hole, and then they go through the lathing and hammering process. Where Zildjian makes ingots of the alloy, the B20 alloy, rolls it, forms a bell, and then starts this process of lathing and hammering. Okay, there's a couple companies that do things, like that. Sabian does the same thing there. Your Istanbuls and most of your B20 cymbals are doing the rolled ingot, or they're buying blanks. Okay, I think some of these companies buy blanks. Like, I don't know what Soul Tone does. They may get a blank with a bell already in it and they do it, or maybe they formulate their bell. I don't know. I'm not really sure about that. But the difference between Paiste and Zildjian is Zildjian's cast. It's cast and rolled. Paiste buys their metal pre-rolled, so they're basically getting sheet metal, and that's where it comes from, versus the ingot style Zildjian. I've been to the Zildjian factory, so I've watched that process. Now, the most unique drum cymbal company that I know of is UFIP. And UFIP rotocasts, meaning they cast their cymbals into like a mold, and then they pull it out. And that's why they sound very bell-like. And that's the difference between UFIP, Paiste, and Zildjian Sabian. Okay, Zildjian Sabian, Istanbul, and every other thing that goes that way. Even Wuhan goes that direction. So there's these delineation points. Now, Meinl's got a couple processes. I'm not sure if they use rolled or they use a cast. Maybe some of their lines are cast, some are rolled. I'm not really up on Meinl at all. But UFIP, very interesting. I tried one of these out in Resurrection Drums about 10 years ago. And the guy, I almost bought one that day. It was a beautiful 22-inch ride cymbal. It was a classic ride, I think they called it. And it just had a pristine, beautiful bell. And the difference between that UFIP cymbal and that Zildjian and that Sabian, all the cymbals he was playing on for me, was they have overtones, but UFIPs have one note. They have it just keeps higher and lower parts of it, but it's all that same note. So it's like a bell. It's like a bell sound. Not a high-pitched bell like a bell ringing, but when you play on the cymbal, it's got like a one-note thing. And it doesn't have all those mixture of weird overtones. So UFIPs are kind of pure sounding. And I've always liked the UFIP cymbals. Just never been able to buy one. And right now to start over again doesn't make any sense. I've got a real love for the Paiste sound. It records very well. It's crystal clear. It's not my dark cymbals. My dark cymbals are my Zildjians, my Istanbuls, my Sabians all come from the dark side. This is giving me a crystal clear, cutting through ride cymbal, crash cymbals. They just cut nice. I've always had some Paistes. It's been my whole life pretty much. Since college, I've had some Paistes hanging around. But now to have a whole set of them at this age, I really love playing them. I really do. And I do have some cymbals that would work on a gig. a light gig if I need to. I've got a flat ride from a traditional series. I've got the Dark Energy ride, which has got that GAD-like sound, that really dry GAD-like thing. And then I've also got the Big Beat, which you love, Brian, which really has a darkness to it. It is almost like a K. So it's a very interesting B8 cymbal, by the way. But thanks for asking. I hope that answers some of the Paiste questions that you had there. All right, my next question comes from Stamatis. Stamatis. I think that's how you say it. Stamatis. I'm sorry I'm butchering your name, Stamatis. He asked a question. This is for the next Ask Earl Anything. He said, I want to ask you what the criteria you choose the cymbals on every song you play when you choose to change your snare, and why. So one of the things that he's asking me is, how do I choose my cymbals for the song? And I do choose snares based on the song I'm playing. If I'm using a deep snare, it's because I want a deep sound. If I'm using a smaller snare, I want a small sound. If I mute it, it's to get a muted sound. I do things to the kit to make it sound in the genre of the music I'm playing. When it comes to cymbals, I don't know. I have certain crash sounds I like my 20-inch giant beat with this 18-inch Paiste crash. 2002 crash. I love these two cymbals together. I have a 505 20 that's almost the same weight and has a similar vibe to it, but these two really kind of are my favorites. When it comes to ride cymbals, a lot of times I'm trying to see if I need a pingier ride that cuts through, or I want something a little washier. If I'm going washier, I usually go to the Big Beat. If I'm going for pingier, I usually go to the 22-inch 2002 ride. I also have a 24-inch giant beat, which is kind of glassy and washy. It's got a nice bell on it, though. But I pick cymbals based on what I'm feeling. And then hi-hats are another thing. Do the hi-hats cut through? Do they fit in the mix? Whatever. Now, the reason I'm choosing the Paistes is because I've found in my studio the cymbals that cut through the best in the mix are Paistes. So I'm kind of staying there, and I have a preference to them right now. But every once in a while, I'll just get a hankering to play a Zildjian thing, and I've got some beautiful Zildjians. I got some Caropes, very, very dark. I've got an Avidus 22-inch ride. It's just a nice ride. I've got some nice crash cymbals, some Armand crash cymbals. I got this Armand beautiful baby ride, which is a beautiful cymbal. And then I've got some Sabians that I've had for a long time. I just don't pull them out anymore because I played them for years on gigs. So what I'm playing these days is what I want to play. And that's the key to the whole thing. Play what you want to play. So that's what I say to everybody. So anyhow, with that said, I guess it's whatever I'm feeling that day is what I choose. Now, sometimes I hear a thinner, smaller crash. I go to the 16 versus the 18, or I put a 16 and 18 together. It really comes down to what I'm hearing on the song. If I have an effect cymbal, it's either the 18 China or the PSTX 20, which I love this cymbal. I heard Vinny played it, but I see in most of the videos, Vinny's playing an 18. But it's just nice cymbal. It's just effecty. It really is a taste thing, and I know how to hit these cymbals to get my sound out of them. So that's the other thing. Hope that helps. I have another question about setup, so we'll get a little deeper into that question. But thanks for asking, Stamatis. All right. I'm going to switch. I'm going to get all of one guy's, questions in one shot. All right. My friend Lori Jones asked a question. Let's see. Here we go. Here's a question for Ask Earl Anything. Your stands for cymbals and toms. Any preferences or ones to avoid? All right. I thought this was a great question for me because, number one, I have no love for hardware. Me and hardware is whatever I have hanging around. This is a PDP stand, I believe. It's been kind of reworked a little bit. No, it's actually a sound percussion stand, so it's a guitar center stand. This is off of the Gibraltar rack with some kind of it looks like, I think this is a Yamaha boom on this. So I've got an old Yamaha boom. I used to love the Yamaha 7 Series hardware. Back when I was gigging a lot back in the 80s, I had a whole set of 7 Series, a hi-hat stand and a couple cymbal stands, boom stands. I love those stands. Then I got the 5000 series hardware that came with my brother's kit that I kept. And I used that hi-hat stand for years. And then I had some Pearl hardware that I used for years. Most of my hardware I've had for a long time. A long time, and most of my hardware is all pieced together. It doesn't even go together anymore. You'll have a Yamaha bottom with some kind of a Pearl insert, and then you might have a Gibraltar boom arm. I have no care. The only hardware that I really endorse is my gig kit hardware right now, which I went out and bought a complete set of the Tama Classic hardware. And that's for my gigs. And I don't put it in my videos because it's not really what my kits look like in videos. This is a very big kit. It needs boom stands. Boom stands require a good solid base or be on a rack. Different thing. But for gigs, light gigs, around town gigs I don't want to carry a big hardware bag, the Tama Classic hardware is the best. 21 pounds. I got 3 cymbal stands. Got a hi-hat stand. I've got a tom stand for one tom. I've got a snare drum stand, and I can fit my bass drum pedal all in that little case. And I could stick in a cowbell clamp or a tambourine clamp in there too, and just throw it in if I want to. So that's probably the hardware that I use on gigs the most. Tama Classic hardware. It looks like the old Ludwig stuff, but I actually have some of the old Ludwig stuff too. I have about 2 or 3 of those old Ludwig cymbal stands, and then I've got a Ludwig hi-hat stand, a real old one from I think this is like 50s, early 60s hi-hat, like just Ringo era possibly. Really cheap flat bass one. And then I've got a couple of snare drum stands from that era. Still, the hardware still holds up and works, but just makes noise, and it's not as good as the Tama. The Tama's better. Tama has re-engineered the Ludwig design and done a great job. I did a whole 3 videos on that, so if you want to see it, watch the Tama Classic hardware videos, and you'll see me using it. I use that all the time when I play in church or when I play around town. If I got to bring a kit out, that's the hardware that comes with me. The hardware you see in my videos, the big heavy booms and everything, not so much. It'll be Pearl, DW, PDP, Guitar Center, Sam Ash, whatever I find that I needed a couple stands, I buy a couple more stands. I try not to spend more than like 50, 60 bucks on a stand. I'm really cheap. One of the things you guys should get from Ask Earl Anything is that I am cheap. I really don't like to spend money. That's why I buy sticks. I could buy Vader, $9 a pair, $10 a pair, but I'll go out and buy the cheap Goodwoods that are the Vader seconds. If I'm not getting a deal on stuff, I don't buy it. That's just me. I'm cheap. Not on even my cymbal deals. I mean, all my Paistes I bought were a deal. So I'm a cheap guy, and I'm not into spending $150 for a cymbal stand. I'm just not into that. So you got to think of it that way too. So all my stuff is very old, repurposed, put together any which way. Like, it's just kind of like my tom mount. See these? I've had this Pearl tom mount since the 80s. I bought these in the 80s. It was on my Gretsch kit for years. Then when I bought rims mounts, they were too long. The arms were too long, so I got a hacksaw, and I hacksawed it off. So this is now a short arm. Before they made short arms. They weren't making short arms for a while there. So I actually took a hacksaw and cut it off. I don't care. It's like the top of my hi-hat stand. Most hi-hat stand tops are about this high up. I hacksawed this thing off. Zip, boom, it's done. That's what I do. So I modify stuff to make it work. I've always do that. So I hope that helps. Lori, don't get stuck in that. Get something that works for you. Most of the cheap hardware today will last a long time. There's no need to go out and buy $150 stands unless you want to carry something that weighs 50 pounds each stand. And I can't break my back anymore. That's just not happening. So that's my world. That's my world. So when I do gigs, light hardware works the best. If I need any kind of light boom stands, I have some old Yamaha that I can make work. I can single brace stands I'll use. But most of my single brace stands are in the studio right now. I'm looking at a few of them behind me in the other kit. So anyhow, hope that helps, Lori. Thanks for the question. All right, now I'm going to start with, no, got one more question. I'm going to go. This comes from one of my lady subscribers. Her name's Linda Liu. I did Open Arms by Journey, and she wrote, just curious, can you read drum music? And the answer to the question, Linda, is I can read drum music. I studied music in college. I don't consider myself to be a great reader. That's one of my things. Like even in college, I wasn't a great reader, but I have been able to read well enough to get by and to help me. Like if I get a chart on a gig, I can follow the chart and get myself through it. I may not make all the figures. It may not be super clean the first pass, but it's a great roadmap and I will utilize it. So I love when I get a chart. Now, the thing I don't do is I don't write out drum music for these songs I play. I play by ear. I learn by ear. I play by ear. And I don't like writing that kind of stuff out. And there are guys that like to write it out and have everything written out and they follow it to a T. I mean, I think if you're going to be a great studio drummer, writing it out is probably the way to go. So guys like Greg Bissonette, if you've ever watched Greg Bissonette on a video, find a video of Greg Bissonette in the studio. You will see Greg Bissonette has a charting method, and he charts it out. Kenny Aronoff has got a charting method. He charts the whole song out, and then he plays it, and he reads it down. I mean, these guys read music like anything. Vinny reads music. Now, does that mean they're not using their ears? Probably that's not the case. They probably are using their ears, but they write out the stuff, the main things, and stuff comes out of it. So I think you need to be a great reader to be a studio musician. You need to be a great reader if you're going to work with a big band. But I think when it comes to doing drum covers, learning by ear is just as valid, and a lot of great players don't read music at all. So having the ability to go both ways is really good. So I'm not discouraging anybody from reading music, but I will say you got to get to a point someplace in your career where if you don't have music, you can still play the song. Because most of the songs you're going to play in a cover band, you're not going to find the music for. So your ability to kind of transcribe it yourself becomes really important. And transcribing that yourself is listening to the music and writing out a basic chart and then feeling what the bass player is doing and maybe not writing every note out, but knowing the pattern. When you see me doing a cover, I'm pretty much a lot of time, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, I'm playing along with the original drummer. It's just, I learn the song faster that way. I know where it's going. I don't get every note. I'm not CCM drummer Matthew Jackson, okay, where I write out every note. But you'll be surprised how much I do get. I might get 80, 85% of the song, the pocket of the song, and some of the fills. But I don't care to play it exact. I do want to play it with integrity. And I want to play the song that reflects what the drummer did on the record as best I can. I'm not trying to play my own thing. I'm trying to play something that's musical. And usually what the drummer did on a hit record is musical. So I can't deny that drummer's influence on that record. You know what I'm saying? But the idea of having to play the chart is not fun to me. So I learn it best I can, then I play it. And a lot of times it's close. It's very close to what's going on, but sometimes it's not. Now, sometimes the chart's helpful. I did a song called Cult of Personality. Everybody knows that song, Cult of Personality, Living Color. I was having a problem counting through that. I found a chart to it. Once I found the chart, I was like, oh, that's what's going on there. And I was able to utilize that to play the song down. So it's useful sometimes. But for the most part, most of my covers I play by ear, and I don't use a chart. So I hope that helps you, Linda, but I can read music. I love the fact I can read music. That's a good thing for me. All right. I got 3 questions from Greg One-Hoff. The first one is about a product called ZiKit. And by matter of fact, ZiKit is a special system that goes inside a snare drum that changes your snare drum from a 14-inch to a 13-inch, no, from a 14-inch to a 12-inch to a 10-inch snare drum. And basically you're cranking it up. Now, if you want to see some guy using this ZiKit, Chadwick Perry, Double Deuce Drums, he's got a whole bunch of videos of him playing it and explaining the system. So check out his video. Now, have I heard of it? Yes, I have. Have I looked at it? Yes, I have. Sweetwater sells it. It's a modification to a snare drum. So you got a dedicated snare drum you're going to modify. You're going to put it in. It gives you the ability to go to a cranking snare drum to a very low pitch snare drum if you want to. I have 15 snare drums, so I don't have a need for it. If I want a fat snare drum, I go to a fat snare drum. If I want a high pitch snare drum, I go to a high pitch snare drum. But if you're a gigging drummer and you needed different snare drums all night long and you didn't want to carry 3 snare drums with you or 2, that's a way to do it. So I think it's a cool product. That's about all I can say about it. I haven't never tried it, but it really looks like an interesting product. The next question from Greg is this. So he goes, I have a question that might fit in an episode of Ask Earl Anything. Why do you change your drum configuration on your videos? Why don't you leave the complete Gretsch kit all together, your concert tom kit all together, and some videos show with much different configurations of drum, either your Gretsch set or your concert tom kit? Why do you do this? That's what he's asking me. Now, Greg, this is the charm of what I do on YouTube videos. This is what I want you to get. I look at playing a drum cover as an opportunity to play a part, especially on a video. It's kind of like being a drum actor is the way I look at it. And part of being the drum actor is getting into character. So what helps me get into a Hal Blaine character? Lots of toms, lots of concert toms. What helps me get into the Karen Carpenter character? Concert toms. Concert toms, snare drum tuned a certain way, getting a certain sound, the way I touch the hi-hat, the way I touch the cymbals, the lightness of touch. What gets me into a Steve Gadd vibe? It's having a superphonic snare drum. It's having, a 10, 12, 14, 16 tom. That really helps me get into that Gadd vibe, These are things I use to help me get into the actor I'm becoming on that drum video, trying to emulate the drummer. Sometimes I'll set up like Jeff Porcaro. I'll have a 10, 12, 13, 14. I have a couple videos. I have some Africa videos I've done where I had the Jeff Porcaro setup. Jeff was big on having a 10, 12, 13 regular size toms, 14 by 14 floor tom, or a 16 by 16 floor tom. So I try to play kits similar to the kits the guys played on the record. Now, it may not always be that way. Sometimes it may just be the sound. Playing concert toms versus playing double-headed toms has a certain vibe. So that certain vibe is the vibe I want to get to make a 70s song sound like a 70s song. That's why I play concert toms. Same thing with hi-hat cymbals and where I place cymbals. Danny Serafin's one of my favorites. I have a couple Danny Serafin-like kits. This is kind of a Danny Serafin kit. This is a Chicago 11 Danny Serafin kit with a 6, an 8, a 10, 12, 14, 16 concert tom, 14 by 14 floor tom. That's what he played on the Chicago 11 tour. I saw him at Madison Square Garden. It was a white Slingerland kit. 20-inch bass drum, though. I also saw him play a Slingerland kit with a 10, 12, 14, 16, 14 by 14 floor tom, no little toms. That was the kit he used for the Hot Streets tour. The next time I saw Danny Serafin play, it was Chicago 13. And for Chicago 13, he had 2 bass drums, 24-inch bass drums, 10, 12, 14, 16 concert tom, 14 by 14 floor tom, but 2 bass drums. Chicago 6 and Chicago 7, he was on the road. He was switching between his, I believe it's a copper colored kit, but it could be stainless steel or chrome kit, Slingerland kit with a 24-inch bass drum and a 9x13 tom and a 14x14, 16x16. Or he had a black Slingerland kit with a 20-inch bass drum with an 8x12 and a 14x14 and a 16x16 and a concert tom 10-inch tom that was deeper than, it might have been even a little deeper than the 8x12 he had. So when I do some of these songs and I put up a kit that looks like that, I'm trying to be Danny Serfin in that era. And if you watch the video I just put out, What's This World Coming To? I did What's This World Coming To 3 different kits. One with a 1 rack tom, 2 floor toms, the first version. The second version had an 8x12, a 10-inch tom, concert tom, 14-inch floor tom. I don't think I had the 16, but I might have. I might have had the 16. That would have been the Chicago 6 tour or studio Caribou Ranch video of Danny playing that song. He's actually using that small Slingerland kit. And then I have me playing it on the concert tom kit. And the concert tom kit was something he used when he was playing on Chicago 11 and Hot Streets and 13. So I try to set up my kits to what I'm doing. I don't want to set up every drum, because if I'm doing a Charlie Watts song, it only requires a high tom and a low tom. Ringo, high tom, low tom, maybe 2 toms on the top. See what I'm saying? So I am basically acting in my videos. I'm acting like the drummers, like what I hear. If I hear high-pitched toms, I'm going to put some concert toms up. I know that the guy was probably using a kit from the 70s with the high-pitched toms. Very common back then. A lot of drummers were doing that. But the one thing I don't want to do is just set up everything I have. There are guys on YouTube, if you want to watch guys on YouTube just set up every piece of equipment they got. There's a couple guys that are very famous on YouTube. They got all their crap up there and all their cymbals up there on all their stands and rototoms and wind chimes and every piece of percussion they can find. And I find them to be the most boring of all. Between that type of drummer who's not using everything but is just there, or the guy playing, and I'm going to say this today, playing the little E kit, and it plays all different sounds, but it's just a little E kit. Doesn't engage me. I'm engaged by looking at drum kits. So when I see a new drummer, it's got a funky looking drum kit, I'm more likely to watch that video. I'm more likely to watch that video to the end too. But if I see the same kit, the same camera angles, I even change the camera angles up all the time. Why am I doing that? I'm doing that because I think you guys want to see different angles. If you saw the same camera angle, just this one over here all the time, one from the front, that's all you saw all the time, guess what? I think you get bored with that. Oh yeah, it's another Earl video. You never know where my cameras are going to be. Now I'm putting them over my head, putting 2 over my head, 1 off to the side. Sometimes I got a green screen. Sometimes I don't have a green screen. That's my thing. So I like doing the acting thing, and that's really what we're talking about here, Greg. That's why I do it. So I hope that helps, and I really wanted to say that. I thought it was a great question, Joe. Thanks for asking it. You asked one more question, and it has to do with the same thing, I believe. You were looking at Whip and Post. They played Whip and Post by the Allman Brothers, and you said, I have a question about your Gretsch set. I see more drums in the background. How do you go with a set you're playing here? You said, how do they go with the set you're playing here? And if they do, how many pieces is in this set when you set everything up? Great question. If you see any colors that are mahogany, that mahogany kit has an 8x8, an 8x10, an 8x12, a 9x13, a 14x14, and a 16x16 with a 14x20-inch bass drum. I also have a 6.5x14 matching snare drum that I did not buy with the kit, but I picked up later. When it comes to my little maple Gretsch kit, the maple Gretsch kit has a 6.5x10, an 8x12, and this 14x14 floor tom, which is a Catalina maple floor tom with die-cast pearl hoops on it. I have die-cast pearl hoops on the 10-inch tom, by the way, too. The 8x12 is a round badge. That is a, for lack of a better word, a bastardized kit. It's a kit I just threw together. It's a kit I just matched it together with an 18-inch Gretsch bass drum. That's the only way to describe it. It's something I threw together for doing gigs. It sounds great. This concert tom kit is nothing more than a bunch of concert toms I've picked up, and I have a whole story on this, so watch my video on my concert tom kit if you want to know the story, but it basically threw it together. So I try to pair things, I match them and make them sound right together, and the way I do that is by heads and tuning and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I don't need to play every drum on every song. I need to play the right drums for the song because I am an actor. That's what I'm doing there. So I hope that helps answer all your questions, Greg, about my crazy drum kits. But my crazy drum kits make me who I am. You know, you say, why don't you just set them up all the pieces and leave them? You really want to see me set everything up one day. Well, I'm not going to do that. The bigger the kit is, if I have a big kit like today, I got this big kit, I'm playing every bit of this. I did a cover on it this morning. I think I hit almost every drum. I might have missed the 6. Oh, well, that's life. But it's there if I wanted to. All right. My last question comes from Mickey F., another one of my regular drummers that watch my channel. Thank you, Mickey, for the question. The Mickey question is this. Love your 16th notes on the hi-hat. What's your tips for playing these so steady? Okay. So, I've been doing a lot of these kind of grooves. So what's the trick to playing them steady? Well, first off, it's getting your hands to the place where you can play fast. So there is some technique here. There's some finger stuff going on with it. I have some finger technique. And it's a little bit of a wrist pop thing that I do, where I kind of push in and I'm using my fingers and the grip. Notice I'm not struggling to do this, by the way. That's the other thing. If you're struggling, then you need to sit at the pad a lot longer and work this up. So you can work at the pad, you know. And that's one of the exercises I do, where you do 4s and you get the 4 feel, you know. You work with a metronome, you know. That's another aspect of how you develop it. And then you just keep working on it. And what I'm trying to do is get it to groove with the music. Now, the song that you were mentioning was an Earth, Wind, and Fire tune. Freddie White or Maurice White, whoever played drums on that track, I mean, they had that thing down. They had that 16th note vibe down. Now, when I can't make it, I cheat. I have a little cheater thing. I do like 1 EN, 2 EN. I go into like throwing in little barks and stuff. That's usually when I'm not making it completely, but some tempos are just perfect for me to play that vibe, and then other tempos are way too fast. Like, you know, Nights on Broadway was pushing. That was that top of the 16 note one hand groove for me, probably, you know. But that's when I switched to double handed. So when do you go to double handed versus single handed? That's a whole thing in itself right there, I think. So it's just sitting with a pad and da 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 da. And you know, there's an exercise that Peter Erskine teaches where he starts where he does. Now, when I get to the triplets, it gets a little dicey there, right? But basically what he's doing So I just took it to 16th notes. Quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, eighth note, eighth note, eighth note, eighth note doubles. Then I do triples, threes, 3 on each hand. Now, if you want to get crazy, you bring it up to 5s and then 6s. So 5s are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's try this again. So I skip the 5s. The 5s, I actually try to throw the 5s in, to be honest, when I practice it. But for camera, I'm screwing it up royally. So demonstrating on camera, you know I don't really retake this and drop things in very often. I'm not going to today. So I'm struggling with it. But this is one of the things I practice sometimes. When I get up on a pad and I got a pair of sticks, is just going quarter note, eighth note, triplet. It's hard to talk and do this. So that's one exercise you can work on. Do it with a metronome, though. If you do it with a metronome, it keeps you steadier, and then keep working the tempo up till you get them really clean. And if you're like a real practicing drummer, you can really work on that and take you far. And that'll help you develop Now, here's another thing. A drummer named John Favicchia showed me this. He said, practice this way, where I was doing this exercise. It was written out, and it was one-handed. You do these one-handed for, I think you would do it for, I think you would go through each exercise you go through each line. It's basically what you do at 90 beats per minute. And the exercise was 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4. You do that for a minute, then you go the next minute, you would switch to the next line of the exercise, which was 1 and 2 and 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Do that for a minute, and then the next line was 1 and 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Do that for a minute, and then the next minute you would do triplets all the way through, and then you would step it back down. Then you would do it with your left hand. Do it for a minute, then you switch to the next pattern, the next pattern, the next pattern. You work it at 90 starting point, then you work it up to 100 and 110, and all of a sudden your hands are getting strong. You're doing the same on left and the right, so you're working both sides of it. That's another exercise you can do. all these things will help you develop it. I think it's 47 years of me playing that lets me do these things right now, though. I don't practice as much as I should. Truthfully, I don't practice hardly at all. I have a pad around. I will sit and hit it for a couple minutes, and then I'll be done. That's all I can tell you. So I hope that helps you, Mickey. That was a great question. So anyhow, that's it for Ask Earl Anything. Your questions make the show. Without questions, I don't have a show. I know I went a little long. I brought it into this last exercise, but there's nothing new here. You guys like long Ask Earl Anythings. At least that's what I think my statistics say, but I don't really look at my statistics, to be honest. I have no idea how long you watch these shows. But I think a bunch of you watch the whole thing, and then there's some of you only watch 5 minutes of it. So anyhow, your questions make the show. I don't have any video questions. If you want to throw in a video question, I'd love it. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Have a great day.